Senator, I know personally that you worked extremely hard, especially as it goes to small business with the $2.2 trillion. Does this number represent a previous move by employers to get rid of these employees? And could they be brought back in order to get some of the money you put aside for them?
It's a stunning number, and it does represent the people who've lost their jobs probably all throughout last week, which is what we were warning about. Can I say something else without, frightening everybody or freaking everyone out? The true number is actually much higher. We know, for example, that there's probably no state in the country who has an unemployment system that is prepared to take in the vast volume of people that are trying to reach them. In Florida, all over the country, they're just being overwhelmed. No system is set up for 50,000 people to call in a day or try to reach them. So the number is probably much higher than that, the true number. And that is why there was such a sense of urgency to get that bill passed last week, and why we have such a sense of urgency now to get the Paycheck Protection Program up and running.
Senator, what's your recommendation to small business owners? I have a friend, I was talking to her, and she said, I want to be able to pay my employees. How do I get that money? We've gone to the bank. The banks aren't familiar with what we're supposed to be doing. She's gone to that website so many times, and she still has questions.
Well, the bank should be familiar by now. I would tell you that my advice that I give every small business is, if you have an existing banking relationship, especially if it's one of the larger national banks, but it can be your community bank as well, reach out to them immediately. I know that as of last night, all the various different large banks that have branches all over the country, and I think a growing number of community banks, are preparing to gear up and start the Paycheck Protection Program, which will allow a small business to go in and get 250% of their monthly payroll, which they can use and don't have to pay back if they use it for payroll, benefits for employees, rent, lease, or utilities. And so everyone's working overtime to get that program up and running. The goal was to start Friday, as early as Friday, with the applications. The applications are now available online. People can start filling them out. But I would start with if you have an existing banking relationship, you should reach out to them again.
Absolutely, and the sooner the better. And of course, Senator, the whole idea behind this particular Paycheck Protection Program was so that the employers who are clearly struggling because their businesses may not be open to the public right now, except remotely or via online, this would keep the people who they employ on the payroll. And if they don't want to have to pay the loan back, keep them on the payroll. But if they cut them loose, then they're going to have to pay the money back.
Yeah, and look, when we're talking about small businesses, the overwhelming majority of small businesses, for them, their employees are people they know. They're not some number on a ledger of thousands of employees scattered all over the world. These are people they know. They know their families. In many cases, they've worked for them for a long time. The only reason why they're not still on payroll, they've had to lay them off, is because the small business isn't making any money. The government has forced them to close. And so they would prefer to keep them on payroll. And they can use that money to hire back the people that have been laid off, to even pay them back pay for the 2 weeks they might have been laid off. But that's the goal, is to keep people on a paycheck and not having to be on a phone for 2 hours on hold just to try to get through to the unemployment office. I still believe the overwhelming majority of Americans would rather have a paycheck from a job than to have a government check from unemployment.
So we had Senator Graham on yesterday or the day before. They were all blending together. And he said, look, all these states aren't prepared. Louisiana, their unemployment department was their computer program was failing and had collapsed 3 or 4 times. That's before this number came out. So having said that, the way we're attacking the virus, can we also attack the unemployment system in these states? Is there an effort made right now to get a software company to design something that all 50 states can actually acquire?
Well, I don't know about all 50 states. I can tell you, Florida is obviously in the process of trying to build up their capacity, both their website and their call center. But again, it's the sheer volume that we're talking about. I want to be fair here. In a perfect world, we'd have systems that work great. But the reality of it is that the sheer volume is something you can't possibly prepare for. I mean, look, every time that we try to get critical about something, I think it is important to remind everybody that what we are facing is unprecedented, whether it's in the healthcare realm or the economic realm. No nation on earth has ever faced what the world is facing right now. And we have a lot of people out there working really hard. None of this is deliberate. there are going to be some hiccups along the way because we have never faced anything like this. That said, my hope is that everyone is putting in all the effort necessary to correct these things, whether it's with the unemployment system, whether it's getting tests out there, whether it's building up our ventilator capacity, you name it. I know there's a lot of people working very hard to make those things better. We all want them to get better.
Senator, the stay-at-home order goes into effect in your state tonight. In our state, in New York, our governor said that now he's predicting the apex will be at the end of April. We still have another month to go. What do you say?
Well, first of all, Florida, in fairness, Florida's had a stay-at-home order just because it didn't come out of Tallahassee. The truth is every city and county in the state had orders of varying degrees. The second reality of it is everything's closed. I don't know where you would go if you didn't want to stay at home at this point. So I think much of that's already in place. And I think all that happened yesterday with Governor DeSantis is he from Tallahassee, he basically formalized what was already in place. Look, I think for Florida, I can't speak for New York and other places, but I think for Florida, the next 30 days are going to be our toughest. That's according to all the models. And as I tell everybody, how long this goes on and how difficult it is, a lot of that will depend on what job we do, all of us collectively, at staying away from each other and slowing the rate of infection. Because that's the key here. We have to slow the rate of infection so that we don't overwhelm the hospitals because everybody got sick at one time. And we can use this time to build capacity. And the quicker we can build up that capacity, including the development of antivirals, the quicker we can get back to some semblance of normalcy. I still think social distancing and limits on large crowds will be with us for some time. But the situation we're in now is not something that anyone believes can be sustained for a year, 6 months, or anything like that. So I think a lot of that depends on what we do right now, and that is every single one of us.
That's right, because, ultimately the social distancing is leading to a social solidarity of sorts, Senator, because I think after we heard from the president a couple of days ago where the numbers were bleak and the diagnosis was dire, I think it finally dawned on a lot of people, this could be the fight for our lives.
Yeah, there's nothing that brings people closer together than when they realize that what they don't have in common is smaller than what they do have in common. This is a disease that infects heads of state and a 90-year-old retiree at a nursing home. It infects Democrats, Republicans, independents. It doesn't discriminate in terms of who it goes after. And so I think this is something that we all recognize. There are no winners here. There are no winners. All of us are impacted by this. And so I just tell everybody that ultimately, when it comes to this, there are no sides. I hate hearing that there's one side versus there are no sides on this. There's only one side, and that's humanity against the virus. We can win, and we will win this battle. And I think how quickly we win and how decisively we win depends on every single one of us doing our part, from the people at home that are staying home to the scientists and the brave and incredible doctors and nurses on the front line, who, by the way, if I could have 10 seconds to thank them, if you look at, and we hope that this continues to be the case, look at the number of cases we have and the number of deaths. There are countries out there that have a quarter of our deaths, or half of our cases and 4 times our deaths. And I think at least up to now, I can say that is a testament to the incredible work of our healthcare workers on the front lines, people working double shifts, in many cases putting their own safety and health at risk. Thank you to them. God bless them and their families for what they're doing.